Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about something that might be a controversial topic. I don't think it's too controversial, but for some people it might be controversial, which is why I recommend that everybody eat animal protein and how to make sure that you're getting the right types and the cleanest sources of animal protein. So if you don't know, I was vegetarian for literally 27 years. So I totally get it. I totally get, why some people might not want to eat meat and how it might be hard to incorporate it into your diet. But we're going to kind of get into that. And also just, a bit how there's some misinformation out there about adding meat into your diet. There are these documentaries that have been coming out recently, What the Health, and Forks Over Knives, that, everybody has their own agenda and they're kind of pushing their own agenda. One could even say I'm pushing an agenda of animal protein here, although I'm not necessarily doing that. I think to each his own. Mine's really coming from, having worked with literally thousands of people with chronic health conditions and diets that I feel have been the most helpful in successfully reversing those. And we'll get into what that is and why that is. But, sometimes these films are backed on some science and some science that's been sort of tweaked to benefit their agenda. And other times it's not even really backed on science. It's just somebody's kind of personal opinion. But after literally working with thousands of people here in my clinic in Austin, Texas, I have seen in myself personally, as well as in literally hundreds and even thousands of patients, where a vegetarian diet is not the best thing. And in fact, when I meet people who are vegetarians and they tell me that their diet or that their lives or that their health has completely changed for the better once going to a vegetarian diet, the first thing that I always ask them is, what kind of diet were you eating before you were a vegetarian? So often people, not always, but often people who are eating switch to a vegetarian diet and they initially feel a lot better, they were kind of eating a heavily processed diet before, I find, or that they were eating a lot of junk food, or like I said, heavily processed food, and not eating a lot of real whole foods and fruits and vegetables. And so they feel better on a vegetarian diet. And that is great. It just shows you that they need real whole foods and not necessarily that they don't need the animal protein. So certainly there are some people who are eating a real whole foods diet, eating animal protein, and then they switch to a vegetarian one, and all they did was remove the meat and they might feel better. Certainly don't want to say that that's not the case, but usually the story that I hear when I hear that story is that they were eating a junk diet and then they went to a real whole foods based diet that didn't include meat. So the real question is, how would they have felt if they had, a real whole foods based diet and ate meat? In fact, there's a very well-known person who I will not say their name here, who's a vegetarian and in the fitness industry, and his entire platform is built around him being a vegetarian and a world-class athlete. And I had that same conversation, and that's what he said. He was eating junk and then he switched to a vegetarian diet. And I said, well, have you ever tried to add any meat into your diet since being a vegetarian and eating a real whole foods diet? And he was like, no, I kind of can't do that because that's not my platform now. So, at the end of the day, you got to figure out what's the right diet for you. And of course, there are all kinds of vegetarians out there. And I was one for a while that can eat a vegetarian diet and still eat a lot of gluten and very inflammatory foods and even a processed diet. So when I was a vegetarian, I was eating lots and lots of soy. Everything was soy, tofurkey, cheese, tofu, brown rice, vegetables. But I was in medical school. The last time I was a vegetarian, I was eating a lot of tofurkey and tofu cheese sandwiches on Ezekiel bread. That was sort of my go-to every day for lunch in medical school. So the problem that can arise when you're on a vegetarian or a vegan diet is that much of your protein source can be reliant on very inflammatory foods, like I just mentioned. Like I was eating, literally everything was soy-based. And, today, some would even argue, is there any soy that is not GMO? I mean, even the soy that's getting the label of 100% organic, some would say is cross-contaminated with GMO. So at least we do know that 90% of the soy in the United States is GMO. And soy can mimic estrogen in your body and be very inflammatory. And not only is it GMO, it has Roundup sprayed on it. And we know that Roundup can definitely affect your gut microbiome and even potentially lead to leaky gut. So that is can be a main source of protein. Of course, grains and legumes, which is where I spent the rest of my time eating, every day was brown rice and black beans and then soy products. So that was kind of how I was. And then whole grains as Ezekiel bread. And I'm not trying to ditch anything on Ezekiel bread. It's if you do eat wheat or you're going to eat wheat, that's probably the best bread out there to eat. But the point of that is I thought I was eating a really healthful diet. I didn't think that I was eating, Twinkies on my vegetarian diet. I was eating whole grains. I was eating legumes. I was eating whole sprouted wheat, and I was eating soy. And the problem with these foods for many people, particularly if you're predisposed to autoimmunity, in general, grains and legumes are very difficult to digest. They're high in lectins, and which are glutens, which are a natural insecticide, and they can, in some people, cause leaky gut and stimulate their immune system. And then prolamines that are found in what we call pseudo grains like quinoa and corn and oats can cross-react with gluten. So, and there's components called phthalates and phthalic acid, that inhibit digestion. And they can also, some people are calling them anti-nutrients because they bind minerals so they don't get absorbed. And then, of course, there's things called saponifins that are found in certain plants that are particularly high in legumes and nightshades. It's why for a lot of people with nightshades, they can be very inflammatory for those with autoimmunity. They're considered a natural insecticide. But in general, if you think about grains and legumes, they have a large outer hard, tough shell with a legume, or with a grain, it's a fibrinous kind of shell for them. And that's what's meant to protect them. Back when there were animals roaming the land, and as there are now, they eat these plants and then they roam around and then they poop out the plant, and then the plant seed goes into the ground and then a new plant grows. And that's really how the life cycle of the plant would get transferred from one place to another, and basically how it was a survival of the fittest, how it remained a plant that would continue to grow would be that an animal would eat it, but it had this protective shell on it that would then get pooped out, and then it would get allow it to grow. And so naturally, these foods, their natural makeup is to have this outer layer that does not allow for it to be broken down in the gut. And so it can be very irritating to the gut. Now, there are things that you can do, but most of us are not doing these things anymore, which is to sprout them, soak them, cook them for very long periods of time. Most of us are buying a can of beans and opening it up. Maybe if you all have your, pressure cookers and your Instapots that maybe, it's getting broken down now when you're using these tools. But certainly in the last few years, for most people, it was opening up a can, and that was the extent of eating their beans. So the other thing that happens when you're not getting animal protein is you're potentially missing out on some of your amino acids. Now, there are 9 amino acids that are essential, meaning that you have to get them from your diet. Well, they're also essential, meaning your body needs them. You can't do everything that your body needs to do, like detoxification, like build new muscle, like, support your immune system, if you don't have all 9 of these essential amino acids. Now, the other aspect of these essential amino acids is that your body cannot make them. So there's some other amino acids that we call conditional amino acids, and that means that we can make them. So from other amino acids or from other nutrients in our body, we can produce these amino acids, and those are called conditional. But there are 9 that are essential, and that means that you have to have them in order to, survive and certainly to thrive. And these 9 must be consumed. You cannot produce them on your own in your body. So the best places to get these are from animal protein. Now, other nutrients that come from animal proteins that can be difficult to get when you're, eating a vegetarian and certainly a vegan diet. It doesn't mean that you can't supplement with these things. And likely, if you are eating a vegan or vegetarian diet and you're not interested in changing for whatever reason, then you definitely want to make sure that you are taking these as a supplement. One, you could be taking an amino acid supplement. Two, B12. So B12 are typically come from animal products, and we need B12 to create healthy nerves, our red blood cells, even produce help with our DNA. So, and of course, many of you all have heard me talk about MTHFR and methylation, and B12 is what's called a methyl donor. So it's used in the process of detoxification, in balancing the immune system, in giving us energy. And it is, of course, very common, it's probably the most common deficiency in vegans and vegetarians. So taking, and if you are someone who's going to take a supplement of B12, I recommend that you take methyl B12, certainly if you know that you have any mutations at MTHFR. And then, of course, iron. I mean, I even see low iron in women who are eating paleo diets. We as women, particularly those of childbearing years, are having a menstrual cycle every month. And so you're losing blood. And then if you're not eating meat, or particularly red meat, and building up that iron, then that's something that likely you're going to be deficient in. So, the statistics are that about 10% of women are low in iron. I would tell you, based on my clinic and looking at people's ferritin levels, which is where I look for iron deficiencies, is in ferritin, which is the storage marker for iron. I would say that it's more like 80% of women, at least of childbearing years. As women move into menopause or before childbearing years, sometimes are not iron deficient because they're no longer having periods or haven't started having a period. But of course, we all know that iron is essential for transporting oxygen throughout the body. But most importantly, when it comes to thyroid hormone, which so many people that I see have problems with, it helps convert iodide to iodine. And it also is needed to convert from the storage form of thyroid hormone T4 to the active form of T3. And that's something that I see is really a large reason for low thyroid, is people not making this conversion. And why are they not doing it? It's because they have low iron. Zinc is another one that is typically found in animal meat, and it happens to and it supports your immune system. And it also is necessary for that conversion from the storage T4 to the active T3. So it also helps your hypothalamus trigger the release of thyroid hormone, and your hypothalamus can't do that accurately if your zinc levels are low. Another nutrient that we can get from animal protein, particularly, of course, wild-caught salmon, is omega-3s. So they help to fight inflammation. They're good for memory and cognition. And of course, they play a really important role in inflammation and heart health. And then two others that are found in animal meat are CLA and ALA, which are conjugated linoleic acid and alpha linoleic acid. And both of these help to support the inflammatory response. And certainly if you're eating meats that are pasture-raised, if they're coming from, grass-fed, pasture-raised sources of meat, they're going to be much higher in these anti-inflammatory CLA and ALA. It's when you get into the classic, farm-raised, inhumanely raised types of animals, that you're going to get the much higher levels of those inflammatory omega-6s and lower levels of the inflammatory fighting omega-3s. So you really, and of course, as I'm talking about animal protein, whether it's seafood to beef to chicken to turkey, whatever it is, that we're really looking at wild-caught, pasture-raised. And I'm going to talk about how to choose a good source of protein here in a minute. So two others that you get from animal meat are CoQ10. So CoQ10 is something I see a large amount of people in my clinic who have autoimmunity are deficient in CoQ10. CoQ10 is necessary for our mitochondria to work properly. It's an antioxidant that fights oxidative stress. It's needed to convert food into energy. And It can also help along with other antioxidants like vitamin C and E to be more properly absorbed. And then, of course, what everybody's talking about on the in the world today, besides the current state of political affairs, is collagen and gelatin. So collagen and gelatin are the glue that hold us together. So collagen, our little villi that help us digest and absorb our food, are made of collagen. Our hair, skin, and nails, our bone joints are all need collagen. And once you turn 40 or over, which many of my patients are, you start decreasing your ability to make collagen in your own body more quickly than you replete it. So you're in a deficit. So that's one of the reasons that collagen has gotten so popular these days. And of course, it comes in bone broth if you want to make bone broth, which is awesome to do and highly recommend it. In fact, I've been making bone broth recently and last week, and started giving it to Elle, and she absolutely loves bone broth. But another quicker way to get that is through collagen powder or gelatin powder. Now, I do have a whole video on the difference between collagen and gelatin powder if you're interested. Super quickly, collagen powder, the one that we have in my store, is flavorless, tasteless, and can be easily dissolved into hot or cold liquids. So you can add it kind of to anything, into tea or water or a smoothie, and it dissolves completely. Gelatin, on the other hand, has a component to it that gels, that it allows it to gel, and we use it frequently as an egg substitute. So it can be used as a thickener. So if you're looking to make little gummies or gels, it could be used there to thicken soups, to thicken sauces, or to act as an egg substitute, as a binder or thickener in a baked product. So I use it extensively in the baked products in the autoimmune solution cookbook. So it's definitely a companion to the cookbook for the baked goods in order to make them autoimmune compliant in the autoimmune solution cookbook. Okay, so let's quickly go over some quick ways if you're looking to make sure that you are getting high quality protein and how to source your protein. So of course, we all, to the best of our ability, want to be eating organic, pasture-raised, non-GMO. We want to be shopping. We want to be growing it ourselves if we can and shopping with local farmers. That's not always possible for everybody. So if you have to make choices, whether it's a budgetary choice or it's a ability to get something choice, choosing a clean source of animal protein is your top choice, even over getting organic vegetables and fruits, because animals are higher on the food chain. They consume things below them. And so you want to be making sure that all along that pathway that you're getting clean sources, whereas a vegetable is really just dealing with what it's consuming in the earth. The animal is consuming all kinds of other things. So it's super duper important that you're getting a clean source of animal protein above and beyond getting, clean fruits and vegetables. Now, of course, if you can do all of that, you want to be doing that as well. And, I talk about in both my books about, all kinds of ways to prevent toxins from coming in and ways to get toxins out. But eating clean animal protein, if you're eating animal protein, is, I would say, at the top of things that you want to prioritize. So if you're not getting a organic raised or a pasture-raised, grass-fed, grass-finished meat, then you're getting conventionally raised, then you're getting hormones that make them grow faster. They increase the insulin-like growth factor. Of course, they're given antibiotics. They're living in, icky conditions. We're supporting big pharma, which is probably not a good thing. They're often fed a diet of GMO corn and soy. And then, of course, if you're getting farm-raised fish rather than, wild-caught fish, then these are often even higher in mercury. They're given antibiotics, and they're fed some icky foods that are high in xenoestrogens and BPAs and plastics that can really wreak havoc on your immune system and on your endocrine system. So definitely you want to be choosing grass-fed and grass-finished. So grass-fed is now kind of a buzzword. We want grass-fed, grass-finished. It's been shown to be much higher in omega-3s and 5 times higher in the conjugated linoleic acid that I was referring to earlier, which is an anti-inflammatory omega. And it also ensures that they're not getting any GMO grains or soy. You want to choose wild-caught fish. And also, if you're getting USDA organic, it ensures that they're never given hormones, antibiotics, or GMOs. So if you know me, I have 2 sources that I go to that are super convenient because they get delivered straight to my house. And that's ButcherBox, where I get my chicken, beef, pork, and other meats like turkey. They've been kind enough to give me a turkey the past 2 years for my family to enjoy for Thanksgiving. And if you're interested in that, you can go to amymd.io/butcher, and that will take you to ButcherBox. And for freshly wild-caught seafoods, I use Vital Choice, and you can go to amymd.io/vital. So, and then of course, some of you have already mentioned that we have a new flavor of a protein powder, mocha latte, that just came out. But seriously, for a clean source of protein that's super easy, and if you're anybody dealing with any leaky gut issues or digestive issues and you're having any problems digesting or absorbing, a protein powder can be a really great way in smoothies to get these 9 essential amino acids in your body. Now, of course, not all protein powders are created equal, and most of them are from a grain or legume source or a dairy source. So most of them are coming from whey, eggs, soy, or hemp. However, as many of you all know, I do have the Myers Way Paleo Protein Powder, which is grass-fed, grass-finished, pasture-raised. They're cows that were never given antibiotics or hormones. They're GMO-free and 100% kosher. And with all my supplements, gluten-free, dairy-free, grain-free, soy-free, egg-free, hemp-free, sugar-free, no artificial sweeteners. And they're 21 grams of protein. So you're going to get all of those 9 essential proteins that I already talked about that are essential. You have to get them from your diet. They are needed to make your, to give you energy, to make your muscles, to support your immune system. So we have the Myers Way Paleo Protein Powders that can be used in any of the protocols. They're autoimmune friendly. They're AIP approved. They're perfect for ketogenic diets. And the most exciting thing that I want to tell you is we have a new flavor. So we always have our delicious vanilla, our chocolate, and our unflavored, but we have a brand new flavor, and we're kicking it off today with a special on the mocha latte, named after my dog, Mocha. No, really, it's mocha flavored. So for all you people who have been missing coffee, it's an amazing coffee chocolate flavor without any caffeine. It literally has the decadent taste of chocolate with coffee in it, but without caffeine. So if you've been missing your perfect iced latte or an iced coffee, I grew up in New Orleans and iced coffee was a big thing, and I don't do well with coffee these days. So since we got this in on Friday, I have been drinking this non-stop. And I have kind of a little joke that we're calling it the mocha latte paleo chino instead of a frappuccino. It's seriously like a Starbucks frappuccino, but without any of the junk. And I know, obviously, I sell this stuff, but everybody in the office here totally agrees this is absolutely a home run. It is the best flavor that we have. If you love the vanilla, this is so much better. And it works great with just ice, so you don't necessarily have to do anything else to it if you don't want to. So tomorrow, probably around 9 on Facebook, I'm going to be making a mocha latte paleo chino, and you can see how I do that if you're interested.